Hello friends, welcome back to another topic and a video. So friends, today in this video I am going to share with you certain defects of the theory of separation of power. So friends, if you have not seen my earlier video as to what is the separation of powers and how was it originated, please go to the playlist of administrative law where I have explained the general meanings and its continuation of all the important topics as provided under the administrative law. So here I only want to share with you what are the defects of the theory, as to what are the defects or points which have been pointed out by the jurist that there is a lack some in the theory of the separation of powers. So basically, theoretically, if we want to say that the doctrine of separation of powers was a very sound, because they said that there are mainly three organs of the government: judiciary, executive and legislative. But what are the defects we will see today? So many, actually theoretically it is a very sound, very good theory, but many defects surfaced when it was sought to be applied in a real life situations. Mainly the following certain defects I want to share with you subsequently. So if you are new viewer on my channel, please subscribe it so that you will get all the new updates and videos on this channel. So certain defects which are found in this doctrine are: the first defect is historically speaking, the theory was incorrect. There was no separation of powers under the British Constitution. At no point of time was this doctrine was applied or adopted in England. As Professor Ullman says, England was not the classic home of separation of powers, and Donoghue Committee also observed in this regard that in the British Constitution there is no such thing as the absolute separation or legislative, executive and judicial powers. Second defect in this regard is this doctrine is based on the assumption that the three functions of the government, that is legislative, executive and judicial, are independent and distinguishable from one another. But in fact, it is not so. There are three watertight compartments and it is not easy to draw a demarcating line between one power and the another with mathematical precision. Third defect is it is impossible to take certain actions if this doctrine is accepted in its entirety. We can say if the legislature can only legislate, then it cannot punish anyone for committing a breach of its privilege, nor can it delegate any legislative action or function even though it does not know the details of the subject matter of the legislation, and the executive authority has expertise over it. Nor could the courts frame rules of procedure to be adopted by them for the disposal of cases. Separation of powers basically can only be a relative and not be said to be an absolute in the point of view. Next, fourth defect is modern state is a welfare state and it has to solve complex socio-economic problems, and in this state of affair also it is not possible to stick to this doctrine. Fifth defect is the modern interpretation of the doctrine of separation of powers means that distinction must be drawn between essential and incidental powers, and one organ of the government cannot usurp or encroach upon the essential function belonging to another organ, but may exercise some incidental functions thereof. The last defect of this theory of Montesquieu, who has propounded the doctrine of separation of power, is that the fundamental object behind Montesquieu's doctrine was liberty and freedom of an individual, but that cannot be achieved by mechanical division of functions and powers. In England, theory of separation of powers is not accepted generally, and yet it is shown for only the protection of individual liberty. For freedom and liberty, it is necessary and essential that there should be the rule of law and impartial and independent judiciary and eternal vigilance on the part of the subjects to securing the separation of powers very carefully. So these are the 7 defects which are found under the theory of separation of powers, and how this is provided under the Indian Constitution has already been discussed in our previous video. So friends, hope to see you soon with a new topic, and if you have any query with regard to my videos or context, please feel free to inform me so that I will get the response there too.